Hello everybody, welcome back. Today I'm going to be doing a deck profile of the deck I was going to take to YCS Sydney. Unfortunately, my kids have come down with a very contagious illness. They're not good at all, so I'm not going to YCS obviously, so I can look after my children. But this is the deck I was going to take. It is a Bystial Fiendsmith deck list that I was pretty happy with. So disappointed that I don't get to kind of see how it would have played out. But I'll go over the list now just to show you what I was going to play. It was, of course, going to be a pretty maxed out Fiendsmith engine with Engraver, Lacrima, and Tract all at 3. And obviously the singular Larry and the singular Fiendsmith in Paradise. I knew that regardless of what I was going to play, I wanted Lacrima to be at 3. So I wanted it to be a deck that could utilize Lacrima at 3. Whether it was like a Fiendsmith Kashtira, Fiendsmith Bystial. The list I was on for a while was a Fiendsmith Azamina Kashtira. Also subbing the Kashtiras for the Bystials. There was a lot of different variations. I've got a whole deck box full of just variants that go with Fiendsmith cards. But ultimately, I went for the Bystials. The Bystials because the synergy to be able to just get the Light and Dark Chaos Angel in particular, that was a big one. Obviously the Bystials aren't fantastic into Malice, but that was just one kind of consideration I was going to be taking. But yeah, that's the Fiendsmith portion. The Bystial portion was of course going to be 3 Lubellion. Obviously it works really well with Necro Crypt Princess to draw cards. And then my Bystial ratios might look odd, but I really wanted Saranir in the deck. I didn't want to max the Bystials to start with. I also didn't want, but I also wanted Saranir. So I've gone for 2 of all of the ones you can play at 2, and then 1 Magnema. So for the longest time, it was 3 Druis, 2 Boldrake, 1 Magnema, so the 6. There was times where I was playing 3 Druis, 3 Boldrake, and 1 Magnema, and that was the ratio I was ultimately playing, and then I changed for 2 Saranir. I'm also playing 1 Bystial Aliba. This is obviously not a great card to draw. Lacrima is the best normal summon for sure. However, due to the fact that there's only 9 starters in the Fiendsmith engine, hands full of Bystial cards, and because you're playing so many Bystial monsters, it's fine. So pretty much any hand where you open Lubellion plus a Bystial, there's the world where you go Lubellion for Aliba. Link it into Striker Dragon. So again, there was some deck building considerations I was making. We definitely could have just done this better. It didn't have to be Aliba. You could have just cut this completely. Like this is 41 cards, so you could have just cut this and make it 40. And then just hold the Bystials, because again, this is the sort of deck that plays so low to the ground that, you know, using your normal summon on this Aliba and then using a Bystial to be able to get into Moon, just to get stopped by 1 hand trap, maybe it's not even worth it. I also was I really liked the idea of Bystial Disparter. I think the card's just crazy, but yeah, is this worth 2 extra deck slots? Probably not, but it was just kind of something that I wanted to play as kind of like a little bit of a point of difference. Of course, we're on the 1 Branded Regained. But the Striker Dragon line actually does come up a fair bit, again, just because of the fact that there's not many Fiendsmith starters. But being able to just link off an Aliba for Striker, Bystial it away, and then having a Striker Dragon later as more Bystial food, because this deck, you don't want to be Bystialing your own things, really, especially your Fiendsmith engine, right? You don't want to be Bystialing the Fiendsmith engine, but if you're going up against a matchup where your Bystials aren't as ideal, then you don't want to be Bystialing your own stuff. But having the Aliba, the Striker Dragon, yeah, it was kind of a way of alleviating that a little bit as well. Then for the non-engine, which is just like the rest of the deck, it's 3 Nibiru, 3 Foolos. A lot of my going first boards, you might even just go normal Lacrima, link into Requiem if you've got Foolos in hand, and potentially just pass, depending on what your opponent has thrown at you already. Because just being able to go Requiem and then chain the Foolos on your opponent's turn means that they're not going to be doing a whole lot either. Ash, of course. Ogre is great because it's a light. Vela is handy because it's a light as well. And then the last card I was playing was just something that I was testing, was Forbidden Droplet. Obviously, Droplet doesn't work exactly like you'd want it to because you've got the hand traps. Normally you want to throw them all at your opponent and then you have minimal cards in hand. It was more so with the Bystials. And I liked the idea that against something like Bystial, you could use this to beat Dweller, as well as the Detonator kind of in one hit. Yes, it sticks around, but you're always sending monsters. Obviously, you're sending Bystials usually, so like they can't respond with it. So you at least negate it on the field. Yes, you still have to deal with the thing, and the Dweller, you still have to kill them in battle, but it's not the hardest thing to do, right? Bystials will just run them over. Yes, there's other things, of course, that you have to deal with, like hand traps and whatnot, but it was just something that could kind of deal with those two pieces. I liked that it also, because it's quick play, like, you know, your opponent's doing malice things on your turn, you could Droplet, like the White Binder, for example, to stop your graveyard getting ripped apart. I just thought it had some versatility. Obviously, Metaltronus does a very similar job, but I just like that Droplet could hit both the Dweller and Detonator, for example. Something that I was, again, just mucking around with. Again, you've always, like, you've got the Bystials on board usually, plus you might have Fiendsmith cards that you can just normal summon, so being able to like Droplet away the Bystials and then play with the Fiendsmith cards is fine as well. The extra deck, it's the 2 Requiem for sure, that wouldn't change. The sequence, the Agnum Day, very important for closing out games. Moon, just with like your Bystials, your Nib. SP Little Knight is great with Regained, of course. Then for the Xyz monsters, playing Caesar, Ptolemy, Zeus, and Typhon. Ptolemy Zeus has really grown on me a lot. I used to like just not think it was worth it that much, but no, it's pretty strong. Desiree and Princess. If I wasn't playing the last 2 cards, obviously this is Chaos Angel, which is a great card to have. These last 2 cards, already alluded to, it was the Disparter and the Striker Dragon. These probably aren't worth it, but also like this type of deck doesn't necessarily need to utilize all of its extra deck pieces. You're mainly just doing the Fiendsmith stuff and like the rank 6s. These could be, right, if you change the deck a little bit, you could take out, for example, the Droplets. If you swapped the Droplets for Metaltronus, these could just be White Binder and Detonator and like hard out them that way. Otherwise, if you weren't interested in playing these in the Aluba, the other thing I would have wanted was Lars and a second Desiree. Just having access to that second Desiree could have been nice. But I don't know, I wanted to try something different. I like Bystial Disparter. I think it's a great card. Negation on field, popping cards on field's great. Striker Dragon was great for Bystial food. But that was, that's what I was going to play in terms of the extra deck. Then for the side deck, Lancia, of course. I was going for Phantasme as another card for Malice, but like obviously Fiendsmith Bystial, it's got a place as well. Any Fiendsmith deck, right? The Phantasme is pretty good. But it also puts a body on field, and obviously Chaos Hunter does too, but if they're prepared for Chaos Hunter, then I'd rather have Phantasme to draw into more cards that could potentially, kind of stem the bleeding a little bit. Droll was the one card that I was not sold on. Obviously Droll's, I think it's pretty good into Blue Eyes. It's kind of hit and miss, I think, sometimes. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good. But also it's just a bit of respect for like Mitsurugi and stuff like the Mermail deck. Perulia was there obviously for Ryzeal, and then I was on Strike. The other thing I was going to consider was, instead of Droll, like 3-dimensional barrier, just to make going first stronger. This deck often plays like Fenrir. I just didn't like the idea of Fenrir, like, obviously like, it's already something that like just like loses to Nibiru, and that's already something like to consider when you're doing like the Fiendsmith combos, is that you're often getting into that 5th summon before Caesar. So I just don't want to like, I'd rather like have hand traps and things that, if the Nibiru happens, for example, then you're still kind of fine. But yeah, that was the deck that I was going to take to YCS Sydney. I'm really disappointed that I can't go. Obviously family must come first, and I'm on the positive, I'm looking forward to building more fun things, because not that this isn't fun, I think this deck is great and it is actually really fun, but things that I'm not just thinking, oh, okay, meta, I'm going to lose. but going back to things that I can take to locals that are just fun and exciting and different. So with that being said, I will catch you in the next one, and good luck to everyone at YCS Sydney.